Kevin Roth here of RotoGrinders, and today we're going to talk about the RG Discord. If you're not a member, you should be. It is a fantastic community and resource that RotoGrinders provides, and it's easy to join as well. All you have to do is click the Discord icon on RotoGrinders or go to rotogrinders.com/discord. From there, you'll either sign up if you're new to RG, or if you're already a member, just click the link at the top to go to the sign-in page. Once you've logged into your RG account, you can be taken to Discord to log in there. Once you've connected those accounts, you won't have to leave the server. You can freely close out and reopen Discord without ever having to reconnect. The idea of Discord might be a little bit daunting to you, but it's actually pretty simple to navigate. Whether you're on mobile or desktop, the far left side will show you the Discord servers that you've already joined. Then next to that, you'll see the channels within that Discord. We have both free channels like Chiefs Prop Shop and our daily sport channels, and we also have premium channels like Blender's Game Theory or the Crunch Time channels. Premium members can see the difference between the free and premium channels by looking for a padlock icon next to the premium channel names. We also have a few pointers for new and experienced users alike. If you're having trouble finding a channel, make sure that you haven't collapsed the section that the channel is in. Collapsing a channel will only allow it to appear when there are unread messages in that channel. Also, we find that using the actual Discord program works better than opening it in a browser like Safari or Chrome. Lastly, if you're having trouble with one of our tools, your RotoGrinders account, or any other technical needs, you can hop in our feedback and help section of channels to get help from one of our wonderful support and moderation team members. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter @RotoGrinders or email support@rotogrinders.com. See you in Discord.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Sunday Crunch Time here on RotoGrinders, covering the MLB slate on this Sunday, April 24th. Glad to have you with us here, free and live, as we break down the 9-game main slate on today's DFS MLB action. I am Justin Van Zuden, aka STL Cardinals 84. Will be hosting the show for you. We've got two wonderful co-hosts with me, Christy Metzger on one side. Christy, how you doing this weekend?
I am doing great. Good to join you guys. And yeah, I got a kick out of hearing about your interesting day yesterday, too, that you had with the Cubs game.
Yeah, we forgot to upload our updated CSV, so we ended up with 100 of the exact same lineup in the $15 GPP on DraftKings, and did not realize it until it was too late, and had two non-active players in the lineup. So we were playing shorthanded with 6 hitters, 2 bench guys, and 100 identical lineups on DraftKings. Thankfully, that lineup had 5 Cubs, so it was somehow still alive. And I'm sweating it as I'm going back and forth between min caching and not caching with 100 lineups at a time, and only 6 hitters. And so, then the Pirates bring in like the second baseman to pitch the final inning, and the Cubs are batting, and it's, a couple of the Cubs hitters that I didn't have and a couple that I did have. And we ended up min caching by like 4 points. With 100 lineups and only 6 active hitters. First time I've ever done that. And somebody out there is probably really pissed because they fell short of caching because my 100 lineup train passed them. And for that, I apologize. It was not intentional, a complete mistake, and dumb luck that I ended up profiting on that afternoon slate yesterday.
Probably makes them feel worse.
It does, I'm sure, but and my full lineups would have had a lot more exposure to the Pirates, so I probably would have ended up doing worse. So maybe I should try that more often. I don't know. That's probably not a good thing when your dummy lineup with 2 inactive players ends up doing better than your actual ones would have. But we'll try not to do that again anytime soon. But it still made for an interesting story. tweeted out the lineup, the lucky lineup yesterday, along with the position on the little DraftKings standings board, which is it was just in the green, but that was good enough. I was happy to not come back with a goose egg out of all that. So we got TJ Zwarch with us as well. TJ, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well. My day didn't go quite as well as yours yesterday. It seemed like all my lineups were mixed, one strong stack with one group of duds. So hoping to do better today. Yesterday had our very first Spidey Bomb letdown. We had Francisco Lindor had a single, he had a walk, but that's not going to do it. That's not going to do it. We got 137 watching today. So if we can hit 30, he's ready to come back strong. He's ready to come back strong. If we hit 50, that's not even half, then he'll do two, a cheap and inexpensive. So we're ready to come back today. Everyone will have to excuse my morning hair. It's still bright and early here where I am. So I'm ready to talk some baseball.
All right, so this should be an interesting slate today as well. If you've missed some of the news, Mike Yastrzemski is on the COVID list, and as of the time we came on the air, we didn't have lineups for that San Francisco-Washington game, so not sure if it has something to do with it or if there's some tracing going on there or what the case is. I'll check in a few minutes to see if we get confirmed lineups there, but San Francisco is probably going to have some ownership. So Yastrzemski likely would have been somewhat popular today. If you had him, make sure you get him out of your lineups and keep an eye out for that final San Francisco lineup that they should put out here shortly. So let's dig in and we can talk about the pitching on the slate today. We've got a nice mix of expensive pitchers, viable options today, but it does seem like ownership is congregating around a few guys. So Christy, what are you looking at as far as the top end of pitching today?
Yeah, so for me, for pitching, I really like Shane McClanahan at the top. I think he's one of the strongest pitchers. I think he's, struck out 24 batters here to start and, has a lot of strikeout upside. So certainly like him at the top. Garrett Cole, I think you mentioned in your article this morning, if you look purely at the last few games, he hasn't done anything, but he gets a matchup with Cleveland, which we saw what happened yesterday. So I think, it is kind of a get right spot for him. And his price is really, really favorable on Fanduel at just 8,800. So I think he's a really strong play on Fanduel. Adam Wainwright, I think, is another great play. He, at 40 years old, just keeps on getting it done. Cincinnati doesn't have the strongest lineup, so I think he certainly makes some sense. And I think you could play him in cash or GPP plays. So those are a few of the guys that I'm looking at, really for cash game lineups and kind of in GPP builds as well. But those are probably the three that I'm focusing on.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit surprised that we don't have as much ownership on McClanahan. I think the McClanahan ownership here on FanDuel is a little bit light. I think he'll end up being slightly more popular than what we've got him showing here on FanDuel right now. But the field is pretty sharp, so I don't think people are going to sleep on Garrett Cole. Even though the Guardians have good offensive numbers so far this year, and even though Cole has struggled, the swinging strikes have been there. So I think Cole and McClanahan, a clear 1-2 for me on FanDuel. If you're playing on FanDuel, make sure you get in that 100K Sunday squeeze contest, 20K up top, $444 is the entry fee on that. So a nice cheap buy-in with a chance at big money there on FanDuel. You can also sign up for FanDuel Sportsbook if you are in a legal sports betting state and get new users can get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. And the users that take advantage of that promo will get the bonus after that first-time bet, as opposed to having to play through it a bunch of times. So terms and conditions do apply on that, but check out FanDuel Sportsbook if you are in a legal betting state. All right, so Cole and McClanahan at the top for me as well. Wainwright is interesting. It's hard as a Cardinals fan. It's really cool to see him doing this at his age and kind of going off into the sunset on top, and he just keeps getting it done. So big fan of Wainwright, obviously. Personally, I do have Cole and McClanahan ahead of him in DFS today. TJ, where are you looking at as far as top end pitching today?
Yeah, McClanahan, I'm only running one lineup tonight because just being on crunch time, that's kind of the easier way to go. But McClanahan is the person I am ending up on right now. Having said that, if I was playing cash games today on FanDuel, I think you're definitely going to Garrett Cole. That price tag is just kind of broken because of his performance. However, the field's going to him as well because of that price tag. And so we have a pretty big slate, a bunch of different high upside, high risk pitchers. And so if I was playing tournaments tonight, I agree. I think our ownership on McClanahan's a little bit light. I think he's probably going to be the second highest owned pitcher on FanDuel after Garrett Cole. So McClanahan, I'd be a bit more scared to fade. So I'd probably just try and get maybe a little under the field with the field on him. But in tournaments on FanDuel, I think I'd just outright fade Garrett Cole. We're just seeing crazy ownership on him, and I think he's objectively one of the top 2 plays, but the ownership is just nowhere close to it's way too high. I'd say it's probably like 4 times too high for what his for the type of slate that we have. So other guys I don't mind looking at if you have the salary. Logan Webb, Jesus Luzardo is somebody that the matchup's not good, but he's got a big strikeout upside like we've seen. If you want to go cheap, I think you can go to Nick Lodolo. The St. Louis is going to pick up quite a bit of ownership, and rightfully so. But Lodolo might go 5 innings, give up 3 runs, and strike out 8 in the process. So he's somebody I don't mind going to. Giolito's on a pitch count, so I'd stay away from there. But even like if you want to throw in Justin Steele against the Pirates, Chris Archer, hope he goes 5 innings and picks up some upside. We don't have as high end of pitching as we're used to on this slate. If Garrett Cole and McClanahan perform poorly and you're way over the field on all those other guys that aren't picking up any ownership, you're going to be in a really good spot.
Yeah, I think I'll probably be in my 60s and I'll still be waiting for that upside from Chris Archer. I get been sucked in by that plenty of times over the last 5 or 6 years. Why not another try? We'll see if it shows through, but did get quite a few swinging strikes in his last start. So I don't mind mixing and matching these cheap guys, like maybe not necessarily on FanDuel where you only get 1 pitcher, but as SP2s on DraftKings, like Luzardo's had decent numbers in the early going. Chad Kuhl obviously isn't going to keep his sub 1 ERA, but he's shown some decent strikeout stuff in the early going. Decent matchup with Detroit. So all these guys are going to be like 2, 3, 4, 5% owned today. Don't mind sprinkling them in GPPs, but again, a little better served on DraftKings where you need 2 pitchers. With the 1 pitcher on FanDuel, like McClanahan is different enough. And you can easily fit him in there, or Wainwright if you need to go a little bit cheaper. But Kirsty, other thoughts at pitcher for you? Maybe some cheaper options that you don't mind in tournaments?
Yeah, so for some cheaper, I know TJ mentioned, Luzardo too. You could maybe throw Elder in there too for a cheap pitcher over on DK. Let's see here. Yeah, otherwise, I'd throw Archer maybe into the mix too. Certainly don't mind his price tag, and just hope he, gets you a few strikeouts along the way there. But I have a pretty condensed pitching pool today for the most part, and those are a couple other guys that are sprinkled in.
And one more person I'd like to mention as well. Obviously I always like a Blue Jays stack, but Luis Garcia on FanDuel 7,200, and so I think that's somebody you can mix into tournament lineups as well.
Good call.
And somebody in the chat, I meant to mention this off the top too, has asked about the weather in Chicago. There are some storms rolling through right now. I'm about an hour west of Chicago, so usually we get the weather slightly before they do. So it does look like there are some storms that are going to roll through Chicago. It should be done around 2 o'clock or 2:30. And the game's supposed to start at 1:20. So maybe an hour delay there in Chicago, but then you can see the chance of rain basically diminish down to nothing the rest of the day. So they should get that game in Chicago with the wind blowing out again today at Wrigley. So if you're concerned about that game because of the weather, it doesn't seem like that should be an issue. I believe Roth had that in his report at yellow for a potential late start, and then play fine after that. So wouldn't expect a risk of a postponement in Chicago for those of you who might be watching for the weather updates. Obviously Roth isn't on to give the live report on Sundays, but that's what his report mentions, and looks about accurate based on the radar. So amateur meteorologist here agrees. All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and start moving through the bats then. I think we've covered most of the viable pitchers, 2 or 3 guys concentrated maybe with the ownership at the top, and then a few pivots for GPPs. Of course, we will take your questions later in the show in the MLB Crunch Time Discord chat. Go to rotogrinders.com/Discord and the MLB Crunch Time channel. You should be able to get into that to ask your questions. So again, you can get to that rotogrinders.com/Discord or through the links directly on the site. All right, let's move to catcher. Obviously, you don't need one on FanDuel. Seems like Contreras might be the only guy that's getting some ownership on FanDuel because the Cubs should be chalky again. We'll see if they can duplicate their 3 touchdown performance from yesterday. But TJ, who are you looking at catcher?
Yeah, so playing exclusively FanDuel today, I'm probably not going to wind up on any catchers. If I was, Yasmani Grandal at 2,600, I think is a solid play. But other than that, I don't think I would really have any in my pool on FanDuel. On DK, if you're playing cash games, I agree. I think you're probably looking to Wilson Contreras. But if you want to go cheap, like if a stack I like today is a Houston stack. And so because of that, if you are playing a Houston stack of righties, you can play Maldonado in that last spot. But if I'm going cheap on DK, the spot I'm probably looking to go to is Zach Collins against Garcia, only 3,400, batting 4th for the Blue Jays.
All right, Christy, what you got at catcher?
Yeah, catcher too. Over on FanDuel, I certainly like Contreras and think he makes a ton of sense. And I do like Grandal for the cheap. I think, some of those White Sox stacks are intriguing, and I certainly wouldn't leave him out. Over on DK, I think you could throw Manny Pena in there at min price. I certainly don't mind that going up against Luzardo. I think he makes a fine play. And then obviously if you're spending up, you're looking at Contreras. So certainly don't mind him. Let's see, I had one other one too. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think I'm punting for the most part, otherwise going Contreras on DK as well.
All right. We have had some people asking about stacks. I know Ross sometimes goes through those before the positions just to make sure everybody gets an idea of favorite stacks. So we'll circle back on that now just to make sure we get that in plenty of time. So obviously Chicago with the weather is going to be a stack that people look to again today, particularly the Cubs. They've got the high team total again. Christy, who you like for stacks today?
Yeah, stacks for me, obviously, like that Chicago game. St. Louis is one of my top stacks today. I like the Giants as well. And I think we just had that lineup just crack for us as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good play today as well. And then maybe for some sneakier stacks, I don't mind a couple of those Colorado bats in there, CJ Cron, Chris Bryant, a couple of those guys. So just for like a lower owned stack, certainly don't mind them in the mix, either them or Miami for some sneakier ones.
Yeah, Peterson, Belt, Ruff, Crawford, Flores, Gonzalez, Estrada, Vossler, and Bart. So some backups in there for the Giants today. And obviously you get the pinch hit risk with Peterson and Belt at the top, but Ruff in there against a righty should be pinch hit proof if you're looking for that. So a little bit more affordable, particularly at the bottom end for the Giants today. So that was the last lineup we were waiting on. The Nationals lineup on the other side of that game came out just a little bit ago as well. No major surprises in that lineup. Josh Bell is out. So Hernandez, Soto, Cruz, Ruiz, Hernandez, Franco, Thomas, Escobar, and Fox for anybody who might be on the Nats today. TJ, who you like for stacks today?
Yeah, so I think my favorite stack for tournaments is probably the Giants, but it's a very, very close tie between the Giants and the Cubs. I'm kind of hoping that weather makes people shy away from the Cubs a little bit in terms of the rain. Maybe people see a delay, don't have Ross expertise, and they're not watching crunch time. Maybe they get a little scared off. So I am still on the Cubs today, despite even though it looks like they're picking up ownership. I kind of like Pittsburgh a bit more as a mini stack. You can definitely run the top 4 in that lineup and you're feeling pretty good with Hayes and Reynolds and Castillo and Chavis. But I kind of like picking them more off as one-offs and get like Chavis is probably my favorite of the bunch. in addition, in terms of if we're getting sneaky, you know, I always love my Blue Jays. You can play them against anyone. And the other one I like is Houston. Houston, you're gonna see ownership to Bregman, but you got Chas McCormick leading off, and so that helps in terms of saving salary. And they're facing Kikuchi, who hasn't looked great so far this year, and they got a righty filled lineup. So even their lefties like Alvarez can hit lefties really well. So I like the Houston stack, and I don't think anyone outside of Bregman is going to pick too much ownership up. I agree with St. Louis. Yeah, in terms of full stacks, that's kind of where I'm looking today.
I read this. Devin said something in the chat about the bat not liking Adam Wainwright, which I did notice that as well. The Cincinnati bats grade out pretty well on a points per dollar basis, mainly because they're really, really cheap. But was catching the game yesterday. The Reds have lost 11 games in a row. Fine. I mean, that's brutal, but they have led for 18 pitches in the last 11 games. Imagine you go almost 2 weeks and their grand total of leads during that stretch has been 18 pitches. I expected the Reds to be bad, didn't expect them to be quite that bad, but it's been a struggle for Cincinnati to start the year. So, all right, let's move to first base. TJ, what you looking at first today?
Yeah, so at first base, it's a pretty fun spot today. In tournaments, my favorite play overall is Brandon Belt, batting second for San Fran. Just with Yaz out on the COVID list, I think maybe that'll limit some of the pinch hit stuff we see a little bit. Like obviously we could still see maybe Slater going for Peterson later in the game and stuff like that. But I still really like this spot for these San Fran guys. Other players I like, Goldschmidt is just too cheap. Vlad Guerrero for tournaments, CJ Crone for tournaments, I think is a nice spot. Spencer Torkelson is somebody that no one is going to play, but Torkelson, just absolutely smashes. He's a young prospect. He looks really good. And he's so far this year, he's been absolutely phenomenal. Michael Chavis is somebody I mentioned earlier, but I think I would rather play him at second. And yeah, that's kind of it. If you're playing Houston stacks, you got a really cheap Yuli Gurriel hitting fifth against Kikuchi, but Schwindel with your Cub stacks, and that's pretty much it for me.
Paul Sporer on Twitter is advocating for the Torkelson fan club to be called Torks Dorks, which I think is pretty cool. He had a home run yesterday, so we'll see if he can get pretty high end prospect. Struggled a bit at first. We'll see if he can get his sea legs under him with that after that home run yesterday. Nice high upside plays at first base. Probably one of the lowest ownerships you'll ever get Vlad Guerrero at against Garcia. So I do think he's interesting on FanDuel. Pretty easy to fit him in with the salary cap structure. There's enough value out there. And I think it'll be interesting to see where ownership goes here because that Giants lineup did come out so late. Maybe they don't end up quite as chalky as they would have been otherwise. But Christy, what are you looking at first base?
Yeah, I have a lot of similar plays that you guys like as well. Paul Goldschmidt is just too cheap, especially on FanDuel. He's priced up on DraftKings, but certainly like him. Brandon Belt, like you mentioned for the Giant stacks, like him a lot. Another guy that I think is a great tournament play and carrying hardly any ownership. He's priced up quite a bit on FanDuel. CJ Crone, he's just been hitting the ball against left-handed pitching really well this year. So he gets another great matchup today. So I like him. Joey Votto is extremely cheap as well, going up against Wainwright. Last year at this time, he was priced way up. But with his price being down, certainly if you're looking for some value there, certainly don't mind him. Yuli Gurriel, like you said, in those Houston stacks, he actually has really good numbers against Kikuchi. I was looking that up earlier too. So I think he's someone you don't want to leave off of your stacks if you're playing Houston. And then, throwing in, Schwindel in there as well makes a fine play there on the Chicago side.
Yeah, lots of intriguing plays at the position for sure. I think it's a spot where you can definitely diversify your GPP exposure. Just a slight heads up, we do have a 5-minute later lock time today. So for those, it might seem like we're running behind a little bit, but we don't have the 105 lock. It's a 110 lock today. So you get an extra 5 minutes to build your lineup. So we've got about 18 minutes to go. Yeah, it should be plenty of time. You can throw your questions in the RotoGrinders MLB Crunch Time Discord chat. Again, rotogrinders.com/Discord. Find the MLB Crunch Time channel and throw your questions in there. All right, let's pivot over to second. Christy, I'll stick with you. Who you like at second today?
Yeah, at second base, I think, especially on Fanduel, Ian Happ and Jonathan VR will carry quite a bit of ownership. But to pay up a couple of guys that I really like, I mean, Ozzy Albies has been playing phenomenal. You're gonna have to pay for him, but I think Atlanta is certainly an intriguing stack too. I like, Luzardo on the other side, but I think there's some interest there in Atlanta. And then Miami has just been interesting as well. Chisholm has finally moved up in the lineup. I think he's certainly an interesting play. Again, 3,900 over on FanDuel, but well worth it. And then in those St. Louis stacks, you can play Tommy Edman there as well. And then I believe in Tampa Bay, I think Brujan is min price over there. I don't think he's in the FanDuel player pool for Tampa Bay. So if you're looking to punt, I think he's a decent option as well. We haven't really talked about the Yankees at all. I mean, they've kind of been tough ones to get right this year for sure. I've always been on the wrong side of that, but you got Gleyber Torres, I believe that's batting fifth. He's really cheap down there too. Yankees probably aren't going to carry much ownership. So, both him and DJ LeMahieu certainly make interesting plays at second base as well.
Yeah, Savali has some pretty strong reverse splits in his career, which fares well for some of those right-handed power bats for the Yankees. Joey Gallo isn't going to get a hit against anyone right now, so he doesn't matter. And all the other guys, the Judge, Stanton, LeMahieu, Torres, I mean, all those righty power bats actually do match up fairly well against Savali. So like that call on the Yankees too. TJ, what do you got at second?
Yeah, so cash games, optimals, and Cub stacks, you're looking at Ian Happ, but if that ownership is actually going to be correct and we're actually going to be getting Ian Happ near 50%, I almost feel like I have to rebuild my lineup right now because my single lineup has a minute and I really don't like that. No one should be 50% owned on this slate. For tournament, somebody I really like, I mentioned before, is Michael Chavis. But my favorite tournament option is probably Jazz Chisholm. Like, now that he's hitting that 3.9K price tag is just too cheap. Like, we're going to be seeing him on FanDuel at like 4.5, 4.7 before too long. He's definitely going to get there. If you do want to punt on FanDuel, we talked about a DK punt with Tampa. You can do it with on FanDuel as well with Taylor Walls. He's batting fifth today. He's a good young hitter, but he's not usually high up in the lineup, and this is a solid spot for him. So I don't mind that at all. And on DK, you have Diego Castillo at 2,700 in that Cubs game in Wrigley, batting leadoff for Pittsburgh. So I think that's a really strong play as well.
Draws the leadoff spot after pitching the final inning yesterday. He's doing everything. Chisholm, Christy mentioned it. I mean, the fact that he was batting ninth a week or so ago was crazy. They finally moved him into the leadoff spot, and he'll probably be there for a while. Hit a home run on the first pitch of the game last night and had 4 hits. So certainly a nice spark plug at the top of that Miami lineup. They've got a pretty good matchup today and are going to be under owned. So like that call. All right, TJ, I'll stick with you. Let's move to third. Who are you looking at over there?
So the undisputed top play on third on FanDuel is definitely Alex Bregman. And so, like, to me, like, he is more above anyone at his position than Ian Happ is. And the ownership is nowhere, and we're seeing like less than half the ownership going to Bregman that we are Happ. So I think that is a very good call for cash games as well as tournaments. Also at third base, you can always play Jose Ramirez no matter who he's playing. And if you're going to have Garrett Cole picking up a ton of ownership, I really like Jose Ramirez in tournaments. We talked about him off air a little bit. You're way off of him. I'm still on him a little bit. I think Patrick Wisdom is somebody that you can play. He's batting 8th, but he's a fly ball hitter against somebody who doesn't strike out a ton of batters with a ton of win in Wrigley. So Patrick Wisdom batting 8th is a way I think you can get different in tournaments while still playing the Cubs. And then, of course, VR you have at third base eligibility as well.
Yeah, they've been trying to move Wisdom all around the lineup. It's been a frustrating start to the year for him, but we'll see if the wind can help him out. It's definitely a good argument for him. He just has to get a hold of one.
The other thing I
JMVP,
want to say quick is on DK, Gio Urshela is almost min price still. I don't like him, but if you need to save salary, he's there. And for some reason, DK still doesn't price up the Braves. So 3,600 Austin Riley, that's just ridiculous.
yeah, Riley and Ozuna perpetually cheap there on DraftKings. JMVP does have a question in the chat. Do we think the Cardinals ownership stays under 10% on DraftKings? I think it will be, just because they're a little pricey over there. But on FanDuel, they'll probably be a little bit higher. And then thoughts on a Yankee stack for DK single entry. So Christy, any thoughts? I think it sounds like you like the Yankees a little bit today.
I do, and I say that and I kind of laugh because I've played them quite a bit this year and can't always seem to get them right. But I do think it makes sense today, and especially at lower ownership. Like Stanton isn't in the lineup, so you can pick up a few of those other guys, and they're a little bit cheaper. So I think that makes a interesting single entry tournament play.
All right. And then he's asking, if you're stacking the Cardinals, would you include Nolan as the last piece or go to Ramirez to counter the Cole ownership? I think if you're stacking the Cardinals, you got to play Arenado. He leads the league in hitting right now. He's basically been the one guy keeping them afloat. So if you're stacking the Cardinals, I think Arenado's got to be a piece of that. So, all right. Let's see. Did I get both of you? Christy, did I get your thoughts at third?
Yeah, mine are pretty similar too. Bregman obviously is far and ahead of, just on FanDuel, just makes so much sense that I just really like him a lot over there. Riley, like we mentioned, over on DraftKings is just way too cheap. And then just a couple of tournament plays. Candelario is cheaperly on both sites. So I think you could throw him in there if you're looking to save some money. Also mentioned Chris Bryant, who has eligibility on FanDuel. I like him and CJ Cron a little bit today. And then Josh Donaldson and those Yankee stacks. You could throw him certainly into the conversation as well. So pretty similar to the thoughts that you guys have.
All right, Christy, you can take us to shortstop.
Yeah, so for shortstop, I think, at the top, I'm kind of starting here with FanDuel. VR is certainly going to carry some ownership. Crawford is way too cheap as well in that Giants lineup. We haven't talked a ton about Tampa Bay, but I do like them a lot today. I mean, going up against Hill, great matchup. Wander Franco is priced up, but he's really starting to show why he's one of the best in the game. So absolutely love that play today. Some of those Blue Jays have certainly come down in price too. Bichette, at 3,300 on FanDuel. Chisholm, again, you can play him there as well. On DraftKings, I think, Crawford and Javier Baez, if you're looking maybe for some of the optimal lineups, they really make a lot of sense. And then over on FanDuel, probably looking at, Crawford or VR for optimals, and then looking more like at Franco to pay up for tournaments.
All right, TJ, what you got at shortstop?
Yeah, so Jazz, you can play at shortstop as well. Somebody that I'm currently landing on right now the most, my favorite shortstop play on FanDuel is Brandon Crawford. 2,800 is just way too cheap for him. VR, you can play at short. Bichette's too cheap on FanDuel. But and as Franco as well, that's a solid play. But that's kind of where I'm looking at shortstop. It's a pretty tight pool for me there on FanDuel. On DraftKings, it's looking very much like a punt spot to me. I still like Crawford, but obviously he's a lot more expensive there than on FanDuel. But you have Brujan's min price there. You have Castillo leading off at 2,700, Walls at 2,500. So I most likely would be going low on DraftKings and sticking with Crawford on FanDuel. But that Baez price tag on DraftKings is just too cheap as well.
Yeah, and the value prices, you kind of need a little bit more on DK. The cap's a little tougher to navigate. Whereas on FanDuel, you've got guys that are cheap, like Hap at second. And then once we get to the outfield, Ortega leading off is 2,200 on FanDuel. So basically all the Cubs are going to be chalky on FanDuel. And then over on DraftKings, like somebody like Suzuki is 6K. So it just becomes a little more difficult to navigate the salary cap there on DraftKings. So I've kind of buried the lead in that, saying the Cubs are the chalk in the outfield, particularly on FanDuel. But TJ, what are you looking at there?
Yeah, so my favorite tournament play in the outfield on FanDuel is Byron Buxton. $3,700 is just too cheap for him, and he is not picking up any ownership. And so I'm all over Byron Buxton. That's my favorite tournament play, maybe of the day. But other than that, yeah, Suzuki is fantastic. You have Chas McCormick leading off at 2,200 on FanDuel, 2,700 on DK. I think he's a very strong play. And then Jock Peterson as well. Obviously, there's pinch hit risk, but Jock Peterson is somebody I always love going to. Austin Meadows is too cheap on FanDuel. Yordan Alvarez is somebody I like in those Houston stacks, or even just as a one-off, because even though it's lefty-lefty, Alvarez hits anyone. And that is pretty close to it. Adam Duvall's too cheap, 2,400 on DK, batting fifth against the lefty. If you think Wainwright's going to be chalky, you want to get off of it a little bit, Tyler Naquin, 2,900 on FanDuel, on DK. I don't mind either.
All right, Christy, your thoughts on some outfielders?
Yeah, I like a lot of the same guys. I think over on DraftKings, Tyler O'Neill, really like him a lot over there. We mentioned some of those Atlanta guys that are too cheap. Duvall and Ozuna make a ton of sense. So like those guys quite a bit too. Ian Happ, of course, all those Cubs guys, Suzuki. TJ mentioned Meadows is just way too cheap on FanDuel. I really like that price point at 2,900. You could throw Robbie Grossman in really to both sites as well, leading off for Detroit. And then let's see, Randy Rosarina. I mean, he's really cheap on FanDuel as well. So I think he makes a lot of sense with some of those Tampa Bay stacks. And so don't forget about him as well. And then maybe the last tournament, I had mentioned a couple of Colorado guys that I like, and I throw Connor Joe in there, batting leadoff, been hitting the ball really, really well this year too. So for a tournament play, I don't mind throwing him into the mix as well.
All right. Roth did tweet out an update that a late start seems like a lock in Chicago, but the system should clear out. Again, no real change to the thoughts. As long as they don't pull the quick trigger on the postponement, should be fine. So, all right, questions, and then we'll do some home run calls, and we got about 5 minutes left to lock.
Are at 30 likes. So we hit the 30 like plateau for the Spidey bomb call. I'm going to slip it in now because we have 160 people watching. We need a third of you, less than a third of you, to hit the like button, and we'll be at 50 and we'll get the cheap bomb call as well. So I'll do this one now. We'll get some questions in, then we'll see if we get enough likes to get this second one in. But Spidey's been yelling at me. He's not even whispering in my ear. He's screaming at me because he's upset about Lindor yesterday. Jose Ramirez is going to hit a bomb off of Garrett Cole today.
All right. I like it. A nice 1%er for the Spidey bomb call today. So and again, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up, and that's just a great tool there. Great job, TJ. He's just professional there at trying to get people to hit that thumbs up button, but we appreciate it. Helps us out a lot. All right, let's see. I got to scroll up here above the weather update. I think there was a couple questions. NBA DFS Christy asks, Belt and Crawford or Goldie and Baez in FanDuel cash?
Belt and Crawford or Goldie and Baez?
Correct.
I take the first one.
Big time first one for me too.
All right, like the Giants. So that's Jay Sams is asking for a quick recap of pitchers on FanDuel for single entry. Cole and McClanahan, pretty consensus around the board here as the top two. Cole will be a little more popular. So McClanahan, probably the favorite tournament pivot. We're kind of all in agreement there on the top pitchers today. So if I was doing a single entry on FanDuel, I would do McClanahan and think that he's the option. And how about that game last night, by the way? Boston gets no hit through 9 innings. The game goes to extras, scoreless. A perfect just microcosm of 2022 baseball in a nutshell. Guy throws 7 pitchers throw a no-hitter, and then the game is scoreless. And I was really, really rooting for Boston to get the free ghost runner in the 10th, move him to third and get a sac fly and score him and win without a hit, because that would have been a perfect capsule of some of the stupid baseball rules and deadening the ball and the ghost runner. I don't like the ghost runner, as some of you can probably tell. But then, of course, Boston got a hit. They scored 2 runs, and then they lost on a walk-off homer. So the perfection plan of making the baseball rules look silly didn't work. But still, the throw no-hitter and go to extra innings is a nice summary of the first few weeks of the season for sure.
So something I want to mention quick, just regarding Garrett Cole on FanDuel. For me personally, he is so obviously the best point per dollar option that I think you absolutely have to play him in cash games. But me personally, I wouldn't play him in any type of tournament today.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe our ownership is just a little hot. I don't think it'll be quite that high, but he will be the most popular by a pretty good amount, probably. So, all right. Amateur Homer asks, TJ, Gurriel or Harold Ramirez in GPPs?
Gurriel.
For sure. I think Gurriel is definitely the play there. Steve-O asking, Christy, is it okay? It's an or Maldonado or Pena as a punt catcher on DraftKings?
I'm looking at Pena today. Yeah, I like him better, a little bit better.
I think he's fine for a punt on DraftKings for sure. All right, so that we've hit through the questions. We got about 2 minutes left until locks. If you got a last minute, throw it in the Crunch Time MLB Crunch Time chat, and we will try to get it.
6 people to hit the like button.
Six more people hit the thumbs up.
Bomb.
You get a cheap Spidey bomb before we get out of here. I have to try to extend the show, Kevin Roth style. Just a few more questions and a few more likes, and we'll.
I feel so bad for Britt. He's been doing as opposed to playing these guys in DFS. He's been betting them for home runs every time I call them, and the home runs are only hitting at about 33%, but the fantasy points are hitting at about 90 right now. So
you gotta
do stronger DFS than bets.
Christy, do you have a hot take home run call today? I'm not putting you on the spot.
I'm gonna go CJ Crone again today. I like him.
All right, that's
so
that
we hit
tag.
50. We did it. Great job, everyone. Thank you for hitting the like button. It helps us combat the YouTube algorithm overlords big time, so we appreciate it. Michael Chavis is going to provide some retribution for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who didn't score a run yesterday, and he is going to be hitting a bomb against Justin Steele.
All right. And the RotoGrinders show, if I go to YouTube right now, the algorithm overpowers. It shows up on the front page for the top recommended for me is my own show. So I'm glad it's recommending my own show for me on YouTube. So would be a little frightened if it wasn't, but great job. Thanks for smashing the like button, everyone. TJ, head of marketing, coming soon. All right. BHB, 2 of the 3 on DK Cash. TJ, McCormick, Fam, and Naquin. You got to leave one out. Who are you leaving out?
I'm leaving out Fam.
That's a tough start to the year. It is tough on that cheap price tag on DraftKings, just dangling the carrot. But I like McCormick a lot more now as well with him leading off. So I think he's a fine play. All right, Jay Sam's going back to the Cardinal stack on FanDuel. Nolan, O'Neill, and Goldie are the obvious plays. Who would be the best 4th option? Edman or Carlson? Cards, you are the Cards truther. Help me out. I think it's Edman. Edman against lefties. He's always had better splits against lefties, and he's hitting the ball well right now. So, and I believe
he's leading off today.
What's that? Yeah, I was gonna say I went to double check that. I was pretty sure from memory looking earlier that he's leading off today, but I want to scroll through lineup HQ and find that out. Yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry. Is he not in there today?
Edman?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's leading off.
Edman, Goldschmidt, O'Neill, Arenado, Pujols, Carlson, Sosa, Molina, Bader.
I wonder if they updated that lineup or I have an incorrect lineup here on this page. Let me refresh it here. Let me just look at it on the screen share version. That's easier than trying to do it in a second window. Yeah, there we go. The lineup that you guys mentioned. So yes, Edman leading off would be the play. The earlier lineup that I saw didn't have him on it for some reason, but yeah, I think you just stack that top 4 on FanDuel. Carlson down to 6th. I mean, I'd probably even throw Pujols in a lineup before Carlson, but obviously you've got the 2 first baseman issue there on FanDuel. If you're trying to stack, Goldie over Pujols is certainly the play, but still some life in his bat against lefties. So yeah, you can see the Cardinals lineup on the screen there.
And so something I do want to say, just because that game hasn't locked yet, looking at this lineup, especially with them going Edman 1 today, I have very, very much cooled on my Lodolo wanting to take shots on. I still maybe think there's crazier things you could do because they'll pick up a little ownership, but yeah, I'm not really that interested in going to Lodolo as maybe I was interested in taking a shot on earlier.
All right, leadoff double against McClanahan. So the Red Sox have already exceeded their hit count from the 9 innings of regulation time that they had yesterday. Not good for the McClanahan exposure, and then an RBI double to follow, or an RBI single to follow. So Red Sox got a run already.
Sneaky.
We're gonna have to pivot. You're gonna have to pivot to already people are pivoting. They're pivoting to the Cincinnati stacks, lower owned stacks to combat the McClanahan bad start. Only 2 hitters. Hopefully he'll recover there shortly.
How dare you scare me off Lizardo and Garcia on FanDuel cards?
I mean, you got to pivot now. It's no, just kidding. Hold off at least a couple innings. We'll see if he recovers. If he's still in the negatives, then you can pivot away from the Cubs chalk if you've got some McClanahan GPP exposure. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and get out of here. We are past lock. Obviously, McClanahan comes back with the strikeout. So before I just keep live broadcasting the first inning of that game, we'll go ahead and let you go and let y'all get through the rest of your Sunday. Plenty of sports action. Obviously, NBA playoffs. I believe there's 4 games today as well. And NHL playoffs will be starting up pretty soon. So keep it locked here on RotoGrinders. Also check out Scores and Odds, our number 1 sports betting site. Plenty of expert picks and advice on there as well. Scoresandodds.com. You can check that out. And also, if you're not a premium subscriber at RotoGrinders, we encourage you to check that out. RotoGrinders Premium, and plenty of good stuff there with all the different sports in action and playoffs coming up. So we'll go ahead and get out of here and call it a weekend. For Christy, for TJ, for our producer Devin, working hard for us behind the scenes, I'm Justin. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everybody. We'll see you later.